Welcome back to another episode of Wrist Check Podcast, the holiday edition.
Yes, yes.
Woo! The gang is back together again. The dynamic duo of WCP is in the house, full effect, with a special guest this evening.
Very, very special.
The one and only Claudio Terjanian.
There you go.
There we go.
I got it right?
You got it right.
Oh, I suck with names if you don't know. Allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Perri.
And I'm Rashawn.
And we are the dynamic duo. If you've been tuning into Wrist Check Pod, and if you're watching right now, I know you have, you've often heard us give a shout out to this gentleman. Claudio is one of our really good friends in the industry. He is the president of Melb Americas. And he's brought some special pieces this evening. And we're going to get into what he's been up to, working with the brand Moser Cie, all of the really amazing releases they've had this year and what's to come for the new year. But before we get into any of that, obviously, we have to have what is called our honorary wrist check. Claudio, as you are well informed, you are sitting across from the gentleman who never repeats a watch, who, thanks to you, is wearing a new watch this evening.
Yes,
Mr.
yes.
Smith, what's on the wrist?
So I'm wearing a very, very special timepiece, as they all are. But this one has some extra sauce.
Some extra sauce.
So I'm wearing the Pioneer Center Seconds citrus green concept.
Ooh, he got it.
Nice.
Respect.
A lot to kind of put out there, but I mean, everything that you see in this watch is exactly what you get. This very
And then
interest-
some.
And then some.
You turn you turn that thing upside down, you check out the movement.
Yes.
It's pretty sick.
Absolute banger. Like design in terms of the case, the case construction is great. The strap is very, very comfortable, very easy to wear, right? Obviously the dial has that big, citrus green effect, but it's definitely a conversation piece, one that, when you wear this, you can expect that no one else has this.
So for me, this is like the perfect summer watch,
Yeah.
right? And if you're someone like myself who has you're very sensitive to colors, high sensibility for mixing colors and aesthetics,
Yeah.
what you love about this watch is that it reminds you of a tennis ball.
Yeah.
It's like that perfect tennis ball green,
Yeah.
which is not an easy color to capture, but when you can capture that and you can kind of
Yeah.
connect it with other pieces of what you might be wearing,
Yeah.
you're kind of crushing it.
I'll tell you, when you were explaining, I thought you were gonna say you were in Florida eating your key lime pie.
I mean, yeah, well, I do have I have a soft spot for key lime pie, but that watch is fire, and something we've talked about before. And Claudia, we've had this conversation before. There's going to be a lot of Moser love in this episode,
Yes.
and so I just want to preface this with people understanding that this is truly one of our favorite brands.
Yes.
And so when you hear us kind of gloat over this stuff, it's because we're very familiar with the product. We have a very close relationship with the company and Claudio, but we really, really do enjoy the product. And to touch back on what I was about to say, we've often had the conversation on one of the things that Moser's been able to achieve that I think is incredibly difficult and sometimes can go underlooked by people who aren't really familiar with the brand is the case design,
Yes.
right? And so it's hard to create a case design in a traditional sense that can be associated with the brand. And I think that's something that you guys have actually done exceptionally well, not only with the Streamliner, which I think most people recognize when they see it, but with the Pioneer case and the Endeavor case.
Yes.
And it's one of those situations, and I've told this story on the show before, where I've worn a Moser to a watch collector's event, and I've been called out from across the room. And I wore the Falcon's Eye piece, which doesn't have any logos on it. There's nothing on the dial. It's just a beautiful stone dial. And there was a guy, funny enough, who I spoke to today, who called me out from the room. He goes, "That's a Moser,"
Yeah.
because he saw the case shape. And so the Pioneer case shape is one of my favorites. Probably my second favorite next to the Streamliner. It's super sporty. It's got the size, the thickness. It wears smaller typically than it's actually sized.
The short lugs.
The short lugs really, really take it
curvature
there.
of the case.
100%. So excellent piece. I too am also wearing a pioneer. This was a new
But
release.
before we get onto yours, can I just
please,
you
please.
mentioned tennis ball, and I'm the only one that nicknamed it that, and it never caught on. But I nicknamed that watch the US Open because of the colors.
It feels like
For
it.
some reason, when it came out, I love giving watches nicknames. And when I saw that watch, I'm like, US Open.
Yeah, 100%.
But
It has that vibe.
officially the Pioneer Concept Citrus Fume center second.
Yes.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, you guys get pretty crazy with the names. I'm wearing a Pioneer. This is a 2024 release. And oftentimes what's funny is, you'll see new releases and the photographs really don't do it justice. And so I saw this and I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then I visited Moserland, which we'll talk about as well this evening. And I was hanging out with Max and Brett. Shout out to those guys.
Shout out to the guys.
And yeah, they're going to like that. And
The team.
And Brett's like, yo, check this out. And I put it on. I'm like, I became like obsessed. I'm like, yo, this is hot.
Yeah, it is.
This is hot. And, the stat sheet says it's a much larger watch than what it wears like. But again, those short lugs really pull it all together. And the retrograde seconds, which is it's a 30-second counter. So goes right back. I mean, it kills it. It's like if you're someone who enjoys complications, if you're someone who also appreciates what Moser does with dials, and this is the Midnight Blue Fume dial, you'll certainly appreciate this piece. It's super sporty, a conversation piece. The H. Moser and Cie name is on the dial, but it's in that translucent font. And you really get to appreciate it. And this is just a killer piece. I'm really, really happy when I saw it. And I started talking to the guys about what we could do to maybe see if I can acquire one. So we'll have a conversation after the show about that. What do you have on the wrist? I know you got something special.
Yeah, just to point out on that
Please.
one. And I had this conversation with somebody today who said, your watches come out much better looking in person than they do in images.
Yeah.
And I said, that's great because, sometimes you have the opposite effect. You see something that looks really great and you see it in person and it's a little bit of a letdown.
Yep.
And
We'd rather the reverse.
Yeah, I'd rather, I would rather the reverse. And when that watch first came out, I didn't understand it until I saw it in person.
Yep.
I didn't get it. I'm like, what are we doing here? And, but when I saw it in person, I immediately fell in love. I'm like, this is a killer watch. It's got a cool complication.
And very reasonably priced.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought this watch was going to be at least 2 times the price that it's listed at. I think, what is the price again? It's like,
it's
I think it's like
22,000.
22. Yeah. I mean, I thought you pick it up, you look at the movement, you check out the finishing, the quality of the watch. You think that this is somewhere closer to like 30K,
Yeah.
35K.
Yeah.
And when I heard the price, I was like, wow, okay, that's really actually kind of awesome. You get a complicated Moser piece like this with this beautiful dial for just around $20,000. That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you have on the wrist?
Yeah. Speaking of, if you want something that's a little bit higher. So first of all, matching our
Yes,
our
that's right.
our merry
Yeah.
holiday
So
sweaters.
this is the festive episode, and every year you guys do the ugly sweaters, ugly Christmas sweaters.
This is a loaner, okay? This isn't even mine. There's so many people that want them that I'm literally going to take this off of me and send it to somebody else because it's the last
We got to
one.
let them know that maybe you had it on the show.
I'll sign the back. Actually, I should probably wash it before I send it. But these things have become so hot. And of course, we've got the motor racing theme this year, and which is a segue into the watch that I'm wearing today.
The Alpine.
So I have the Alpine cylindrical tourbillon in the Streamliner case on a strap. And the interesting story about this watch is this movement came off of the GPHG award-winning
That's
Pioneer
right.
cylindrical turb a few years back, which
One of my favorite watches.
which won the tourbillon prize.
Yep.
This came out because when we signed the partnership with Alpine, it happened pretty quick. And then, of course, the next thing is let's design a watch.
Yes.
And we didn't have much time to design the watch. So we had to kind of think outside the box and said, let's put it on a Streamliner. Let's take the bracelet off and let's put the Pioneer cylindrical tourbillon movement in there, and let's see what happens. And it, in my opinion, of course I'm biased, but I feel like we really knocked it out the park.
No, you
I
absolutely
love
did.
the watch. It matches the colors of the team, and I think we were able to put this together, or from concept to the actual product within 4 or 5 months, which is really unheard of.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't make a brand new movement. So I really love this watch. I think it's the partnership with Alpine it's still pretty new, but we're enjoying it. We're enjoying the experiences that we've been able to share with some of our clients and Moser family members and press. And we'll continue to do that for the next few years. Hopefully I could get either one of you or both of you to some sort of a F1.
I'm with that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We'll love
Count
that.
me in.
Yes.
It's funny because this cylindrical tourbillon piece, that GPHG winner, that was like one of the pieces that really made me fall in love with the brand. Just because I felt like it was a really new approach to a skeleton watch, especially with having like the time display, like kind of like shrunken and all the way at 12, just to be able to see it like that. It was like a new approach, super contemporary, super modern, actually, to a skeleton tourbillon timepiece. There was so much happening, but it wasn't too much. It was like the right balance with the lack of a dial. You can see right through, and then to put that thing on the strap. Like, to make a watch like that as sporty as you did, I thought was really awesome because it still felt ultra luxury. It felt high end. And then when this came out and I saw this, I was like, no brainer.
Yeah.
Obvious move.
Yeah, it was great. And we also had a pink version. This was limited to 100 pieces.
It was 100 pieces across both colorways, or
no, 100 pieces for the blue.
Color. Okay.
And 20 pieces for the pink.
Oh, so the pink is super limited.
Super limited. And we've seen, actually, what's interesting is we've had a couple of ladies reach out, and believe it or not, for some of them, that was their first Moser.
Wow.
It's an incredible first piece.
So yeah, it was
and
great.
It's a hefty price tag on that one. I think it's what, $90K?
Not so bad for what it is, right?
Yes.
98,000. It comes with it's like a collector's set.
100%.
You get a jersey, you get a signed helmet from Pierre Gasly, who is actually an ambassador for Moser. And it's just, it tells a nice story. It's not just a watch in a box.
Exactly.
And, also, obviously, the experiences matter. So some of these people have been to races or will go to future races. So kind of, it fits.
Yeah, and it allows you to get really into it, especially when you can tie an experience to a timepiece like that. This episode of WCP is sponsored by Bezel, a trusted marketplace for buying and selling watches. With over 18,000 and counting watches listed from both private sellers and professional dealers, you have your pick of the litter from brands like Rolex, AP, Patek, and more. Bezel is one of the highest rated marketplaces for watches. Inside the Bezel app, you can make offers on watches, buy them outright, bid at auction, all with confidence knowing each timepiece is authenticated by an in-house team of experts. For more information, visit getbezel.com or search Bezel in the App Store and download the app today. The thing is, kind of even going back like to the sweaters, right? And you kind of talking about how like these things are highly coveted. You guys have like a real cult following of a brand. Like when people get into H Moser, like when they discover it, it's like part discovery, like the product. And then it's like the other half is like discovering like the culture of the company. And it clicks. Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah. And it's like, okay, this is something I can get behind. Then you start getting into like the history, the Milan brothers, what they've done with the company since acquiring it, the product itself, the quality of the product, the finishing, what you guys are doing at Melb. It's very easy to like become like an H Moser person, client, ambassador. Yeah. And we've made friends with some of them. We were just in Palm Beach hanging out with Shane. Shout out to him. Shout out to Moser Club. That's right, the one and only. But when you see the caliber of collectors that are finding, H Moser and the types of watches that also exist in their collection side by side, it speaks volumes about where this brand is and where this brand is going. I want to get into a little bit about your role quickly, just to kind of like paint the scene. You were the president. How does one get elected to becoming the president of Melb? What is Melb?
Yeah, so Melb Americas is a subsidiary, which is the headquarters for Moser Americas, as well as Hotlands. So two brands that are owned within the Melb organization. How did I get elected? I mean, I'm going on 20 something years in this industry.
Wow.
And, when I came into it, it was nobody became a full-time watch salesperson, And I remember when I joined, I was probably the youngest one by 20 or 30 years. I'd do the circuit, I'd go to stores. And it was just one of those things that I loved. And I knew that there were other industries and other things that I had studied for, but I never wanted to do anything else. Around 24 years old, 25 years old, I was head of a brand, head of sales for a couple of brands, and flying around and just enjoying, the role and the lifestyle.
Yeah. Because there's a lifestyle that comes along with, with selling watches. Listen, I love it.
Yes, it's great. It's great.
All right, yeah. Well, I'll go to.
It's a lot of fun.
I'll go to St. Bart's for the weekend.
Yeah, why not?
This event, or go to Las Vegas for this or that. So as a young guy, I just kind of fell in love with that life, and then of course, I mean, working in the watch business, you really fall in love with the watches themselves.
Yep.
Because for me, and I think for you guys as well, it's always exciting to see what's in the pipe. What are we coming out with next year? I mean, whenever there's a product release, you just want to jump in on it. When
100%.
I go to stores, I mean, I'd love to have a key and be able to go into every case because I want to see everything.
Yeah.
And so it became something that I fell into, but obviously something that I'm super passionate about, and I've been doing it for a long time. And I just, just stuck in there and rose the ranks, and kind of finally one day got a phone call and said that Edward Milan and Bertrand Milan, who are the co-owners of Melb, and they said, hey, they're looking for somebody. Would you be interested? And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, the cheese watch guys?
Cheese watch guys.
I'm like, I was like, yeah, like, sure, why not? And I did my own research, started studying them, and I knew right away that there was something special. I was at a point in my career where I was a little bit scared. I was like, okay, if I make this move, I don't know where I would go next, but I just felt very confident in their leadership, in what they were doing with the brand. And, here I am 3+ years later, and, things are, it's probably the happiest I've been in my career.
Wow. No, it says a lot. I mean, just knowing you and watching you kind of grow into the role, it seems as though, I'm sorry, you had something?
Yeah, I was going to mention what I do enjoy about your story is you kind of, and even with the Moser brand, you guys kind of put your philosophies in the product, in the team that you have, right? Like yourself being in this industry as a young man, you also have a young protege. Shout out to Brett. Brett's gonna get a kick out of that one. But you guys are embracing the youth, the guys that actually care about this craft and want to keep it going, the same as embracing pop culture, right? Getting involved in so many things that are very relevant to the consumer today, because it's not the middle-aged, mature guy anymore buying these watches at 80, 90, 100 grand. You got a 24-year-old kid that can do it too.
Yeah,
I think that's a good point, because I mean, so when I think about Moser, and
we don't discriminate, we'll take them all.
No, 100%. But I think also when I look at Moser's business, when I look at Melb, and I look at the moves that the Milan brothers have done in the last couple of years, you kind of take a step back and you're like, these are really two really good businessmen, right? They're very measured in terms of how they move and how they set their business up, especially with some of these acquisitions that they've had in terms of like movement makers and like, producing hairsprings and such. They've placed themselves in a position that I really feel like allows them to look towards the future, right? There is a lot of brand investment that's happening right now with H. Moser. The product is there, the quality is there, but when I think of H. Moser, I think of like when people say blank is the future. H. Moser to me really is the future. not only in terms of design and product offering, but in terms of appeal, right? And the diversity and the array of clientele that you guys have, and the diversity in their collections, right? Even you take a guy like Shane, for example. Shane's he's not an old guy.
No.
He's a young guy
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, right? This is someone who has a variety of tastes, collects big brands, F. Bjorn, etc. But he's also got just like kind of like down to earth, kind of like taste, like sneakers, likes clothes. You know what I'm saying? Loves to travel, easy to get along with, listens to music, like very well cultured. And it's like
Wrist Check Pod.
listens to Wrist Check Pod. Shout
think
out
we're
to him. He told us we need to put out an episode a day, actually.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. But when I think of like clients like him, I think about like friends of ours like Danny Arango, who owns a couple of Mosers. You know, I really look at this brand as like delivering something traditional, but in it from a new lens and a new perspective, particularly with like design and culture that more people are open to. And you're really setting up that next crop of collectors, guys like us, some guys a little bit younger, some guys just a little bit older, to be able to say, I'm going to collect and invest in this brand for the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, what can I say? There's, first of all, you know, the Moser family, as we call them, such a great, you know, passionate, I would say, you know, loyal, just good people, fun-loving people. And, you know, we see it every day. We have a Facebook account that was started by a collector, Richard. And, you know, he basically created a fan page. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't go in there. And, you know, there's still some people I've never met yet, but you just feel like they're family because of all the communication. And it's just a place that people are very happy to share. Everybody's kind of, you know, pushing somebody to get their next Moser.
Oh yeah,
you know, it's
a
like,
bunch of enablers.
Exactly,
enablers, a little bit of soft competition as well.
But it's cool because like even like when you came in tonight, you were wearing the Undefeated H Moser jacket, which I know like hardcore Moser fans know about, but I'm not sure how many people in the public actually know about. But like you guys did a Streamliner with like one of the most famous streetwear brands, very iconic.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Undefeated, like super cool.
Yeah. And there's also too, sorry to cut you off, Claudio.
No, please.
I think the biggest part, right? Because we had a back and forth banter about another brand that they recently did a collaboration, and we were saying that it was so many.
You want to name them? Just name them.
Okay.
Tell them how you feel.
AP.
Okay. Just get
Late
off
to
your
the
chest.
party. Late to the party with the Cause collaboration, just because of how relevant Cause is to, you know, the culture. When we say the culture, right, we know what that means. And for you guys to tap into Undefeated, because Undefeated is the culture, they kind of tap into the Cause, the Bathing Ape, the Pharrell Williams, you know, all of those things. And so for you guys to attach yourselves, like, I don't know how many watch brands actually even know what Undefeated is or that it exists, you know?
Yeah, they probably don't. But as I understand, this came by way of a relationship.
Exactly. It was, you know, first of all, when it came out, I think, you know, we were doing collaborations here and there, but I think that was, you know, a pretty big one. And it was, you know, I mean, we didn't know what to expect, you know, when it was released, but it served its purpose. I mean, you know, we got into the streetwear world, and those guys got into the high horology world, and it was a nice blend. It was a good mix. I mean, I remember reading through all of the requests, you know, guys were like, oh, this is my favorite streetwear brand, and I never heard of you guys before. Or, you know, vice versa. The guy who's a big Moser guy, I was like, oh, that's cool. I've never heard of them. And now, you know, they're going out and buying, you know, streetwear, Undefeated stuff. I mean, I love their stuff. I wear it all the time.
Yeah.
Eric, if you're watching.
Yeah, right.
Send us some gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need a refill.
Yeah. I mean, even like the Undefeated Air Force Ones was like a big thing. And it was perfect because it aligned at the same time. I don't know if it was like intentional, but those like patent leather Air Force Ones is kind of huge, and it's kind of brought people back into collecting Uptowns.
You're right, but what it does is it pivots the conversation, right? And with all this talk about luxury, where luxury is going, what is luxury today? Luxury is, for me, and I always talk about this, and maybe sometimes people hate it, but I'm always like pre and post Virgil Abloh. And I really feel like Virgil like kind of flipped everything on its head in the sense of the idea about luxury became more experiential than anything. And it was more about the client's experience and the client's relationships, being part of something that was bigger than yourself, right? And so when you think about where sneaker culture is and streetwear is today, like it's being sold at Sotheby's.
Yeah.
Next to watches, high jewelry, everything, right? Because limited in production, sometimes they're using premium materials, but there's something mystical about it too, where it's like, that this thing is in limited quantity, they're really tough to get. And when you place it in a certain venue or you align it with certain things that share certain ideals, it changes the experience and it does something else to you. And I think that's something that, you guys have done on multiple occasions, right? So if we can get into one of the pieces here, there's a collaboration that you guys did in 2024 that turned out to be really, really big.
Yeah, the Passion Project.
The Passion Project. If you want to grab that real quick.
You were at that party. I remember you mentioned.
I was, yeah. All these crazy people with bucket hats.
Bucket hats. Did you get one? I never got one.
I have one at home,
Yeah, I don't have one.
But I want to talk a little bit about this collaboration, how this came about, and what this meant for you and the team at over at H. Moser, because this was something that I didn't see coming.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love about the brand is that I know that I'm always going to get something unexpected from H. Moser. But what I loved about this, and I'd love for you to share more, is it goes back to that relationship, right? Like Studio Underdog is a brand that most of their watches, I think, were like sub $1,000. I think they're now just starting to climb. Watches are being sold for $2,000, $2,500, et cetera. But for me, I thought that the whole passion fruit theme was appropriate because these are two brands, regardless of what the price point is, the clientele, that they're beloved amongst the collector groups, right? Like these guys are incredibly passionate about these brands. So if you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. You said it better than I could. But I remember listening to the press release when they come out, and just like Moser Fashion and Studio Underdog Fashion, we're having a lot of fun teasing leading up to it. But to sort of not give a long story, somehow, some way, these brands were introduced to each other, and I think what ended up happening was it was Richard who wanted to do something with Moser, and I think Edward and Bertrand were kind of figuring out well, how could we make this work?
Yeah,
as you mentioned, very different price points. You can't just all of a sudden get somebody who's buying $1,500 or $1,000 watches into a $60,000 watch, which is what the retail is for the pair. But we saw a lot of similarities in our brands. We're the studio underdog of
the high-end
watches, and and there was that spirit. So I think that right away they hit it off and they got to talking. And I don't really know what happened behind closed doors and how they designed that, but one word that kept being mentioned was passion, 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 and that's why a lot of the all of Studio Underdog's watches have a food theme on it. So why not passion fruit?
Yes.
So that's where you get the color scheme from, and it was a big success.
It was.
100 pieces are only going to be made. You get one of our watches, which is a stainless steel perpetual calendar with this, really beautiful dial. And in that same box, in that same set, you're going to also get a Studio Underdog mono pushing chronograph, which is really cool. and it was a hit. And who would have thought?
I'm not surprised. And what's funny is, so I was in Geneva when this launched for Geneva Watch Days, and I love the marketing that you guys do, because it was like right outside, where they have the glass box with the symposium, where they do all like the talks and stuff like this. There was a guy with like a food cart doing like what we call like sorbet ice cream and stuff, and it was for this, and it was the two different flavors. One, I forget what it was, but it was like a passion fruit thing. One purple, one yellow, and you could get scoops of both. And it was a hot day in Geneva, so it was like right on time. Yeah. But it kept the conversation going. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so like people were like, okay, let me stop and get this, and like getting back into the watches, talking about the watch, like, oh, I wonder what they're gonna release, what they're working on, And just the approach that you guys have to watchmaking, I think, is just so incredibly fun. And this was. I'll say, I think in terms of design, this wasn't the release for me, but I appreciated it because I understood what it meant, not only for the brands, but for collectors.
Yeah.
And it's not often that you get a brand that's like thinking about client first and client experience. And to partner up with a brand like Studio Underdog, I thought was a really big statement to the watch, and to say like, hey, we can afford to make watches out of passion, because a lot of brands can't.
Yes.
Yeah, and to your point, and I'm just name dropping all day over here, but Ron and Rachel, this wonderful couple who is just big supporters of Moser. So shout out to you too. Hope you're watching. They got in line to get one of these pieces, and for us it was really important to get them one because of just their support, their admiration. I mean, they're Rachel changed her license plates to have very rare. She even got a tattoo.
Oh, that's fire.
Wow. She even got a tattoo.
Yeah.
Ron is basically part of the the Facebook fan book, a fan club, and it's almost like he's running it. I don't even really need to do anything anymore. He just answers everything.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
But when they decided that they wanted to get this piece and add it to their collection, which is, it's a really great collection. It's very eclectic. They went and got, clothes to match.
Wow.
The colors of that. So they went and got like custom made suits, and basically because they were like, we want to, and then they started going down the rabbit hole and getting different color straps that were going to go with it. So, I would say that the person who's into this collaboration is a true collector. Somebody, I don't know if it's going, I mean, it could be, I don't want to talk anybody out of it, but it's almost like you are a collector, and it's more than just a watch. It's more than just that set. But I think it's really cool that you're getting two great watches in one purchase.
Yeah, for sure.
So really it comes down to like, I think that the person that goes after this specific model, that's like the real, Moser collector.
Oh, big time.
The
This
true,
is someone,
the true supporter.
Yeah, this is someone who champions like independence, independent brands, independent spirit.
Yeah.
Just the concept and the idea of very rare, and what that means, being part of a club.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? With like-minded individuals. It was a home run. Yo, Bezel just launched auctions?
Really?
Yeah, they did. You could bid on watches inside the app. They give you notifications on auction drops, and it's still authenticated. Oh, shoot, I won.
Yo, what you win?
Man, don't worry about me, man. Go download the app. Go visit getbezel.com.
Oh, come on, man.
In life, there are choices and options. Choices set the tone. Options change the mood. And while you aren't able to drive two cars, you can, however, travel with two watches. Introducing the Shuttle, a traveling watch case in collaboration with WCP and Wolf. Godspeed.
Available at wristcheckpod.com.
You guys had a really big year. I want to talk about real quick this magical place that you guys opened up called Moserland.
Moserland.
Because I know a lot of our audience often hears, yeah, exactly. they hear Moserland. It's like, and I talk to guys in like our group chat all the time, like, what the fuck is Moserland?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Is this the Willy Wonka chocolate? Like, what is this magical place?
It is.
So run us through our audience through what Moserland is, and what is it? What is this place?
I mean,
It's magical.
yeah, you have to make an appointment to see it. No, it's I mean, look, to simplify it, it's a home office for Moser in the Americas, as well as Hotlands. And when we were looking for our first office, because prior to me joining, we had an agent that was representing us who did a fantastic job. And when I came in, the role was to build a subsidiary. So when we were looking at office spaces and thinking of ideas on what we can do, we wanted to actually model it after what they did in Hong Kong. So Moserland already existed. It just didn't have a name yet. So now we also have Moserland Hong Kong.
Wow.
But the idea was to build an office, but also a space where people could come, hang out, non-pressure environment. You don't have this. It's not like going into a store where you sit down and you feel like, okay, I have to either move or purchase the watch. Over there, it's come in, we'll pull out a couple of trays of watches that we have. We don't have much, but we usually have the novelties, have a coffee, have a drink, enjoy the beautiful view in Manhattan. So we nicknamed it Moserland, and it stuck. And it's great. I mean, it's one of those places where if you're a fan of Moser, and the reason we built it in New York City was because we feel like at some point everybody's going to make it to New York, and that's
100%.
and that worked out well. So we're meeting a lot of people who are there on business trips, family vacations, and things like that. The only thing that I'll say is, for anybody's watching this right now, it's by appointment only. So you could go to our website, click on a link, and somebody will get back to you and coordinate a visit. But we welcome everybody. If anybody's interested in learning about the brand, wants to take a million pictures, talk about watches. It doesn't even have to be Moser. That's the other thing. Like, people come over and we'll talk about everything. I mean, we're true watch heads, especially, my team, as you mentioned, Brett and Maxwell, who are two of the biggest, watch connoisseurs that I've ever met. And to your point, young guys who are into it. And we built this space for everybody to, come visit at some point.
Yeah. I think the cool thing for me too, right, is that it goes back to what we were talking about with like the importance of the experience. And you guys, for anyone who's ever been to, like, if you've been to an authorized dealer and you've seen like the Moser shop and shop, if you have made it out to Hong Kong and you've seen like one of the stores, that Moser interior design, they have like an aesthetic, a visual language, and that extends itself to Moserland. And when I do like consulting for brands, I often bring up Moser and I talk about my term that I coined. I call, having a good ground game. And Moserland is essential, I think, to the collector client experience with having a good ground game, because there's a space, this is your workspace, right? Like, we're entering into your space. This is where you get shit done. You're holding meetings, etc. But you open it up to the public by appointment, and it feels special. It feels like a clubhouse. There's no pressure to transact.
Mm-hmm.
Come and experience the brand vicariously through the personalities that work there and the aesthetic of like actually walking into our world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so crucial and so important, I think, for brands, especially independent brands, where the resources aren't as large as it is for some of the bigger brands. And so it really comes down to making that connection and forging that relationship. And I think you guys have done a bang up job. I mean, I've probably been there 7 or 8 times this year in 2024.
Yeah.
And I'll be there again. Like, it's one of my favorite places to go and just hang out at.
Yeah. What I wanted to tap into as well, because when I was thinking of Moserland, just looking at the product, right? What I love about Moser's approach to the product, right? It's very similar to fashion, because we come from a fashion background where there's ready to wear and then there's contemporary or couture runway kind of pieces.
Sure, I can feel that way.
And so what Moser does with their kind of runway, right? You have like the cheese watch, the Swiss Alps, and all of these interesting watches.
That would probably be more couture.
That's yes, but more of like the things that aren't accessible.
Sure.
Like it's more of just
The
like
talking pieces.
Yeah. This is what we can do. Where did that approach come from to take classic watchmaking and bring this like different spin on it?
Oh, I have the perfect answer for that one. I like that question. In being in the industry and being a competitor for Moser for many years, I always was intrigued and curious to see what they would come up with next year. And so, I was watching the Swiss Alp watch. I was watching the Swiss Icons watch, the Swiss Mad.
Swiss Mad.
And we have this. We had it 2 years ago in the U.S. We had this traveling talking piece museum, and it was basically a suitcase of all those watches.
I remember that,
and it was crazy because everybody just loved it, and it was everybody has their own favorite one. We even had one watch called Moser Nature, where it was a watch
that was
made
crazy.
with plants, and you had to kind of keep it alive. Anyway, the thing died. But the idea comes back to when Edward and Bertrand first started looking into Moser, and when they first acquired the brand, they realized what they had was, first of all, a really great watch company that's been around for 200 years. Edward always says, we're like a 200-year startup. But there was the watches blended in with a lot of the other brands. So at the time, we're talking 2012, and we did this exercise where you removed all the brand logos off the watches, and you line them up, and you put a Moser in there. And I probably showed you guys this before.
I think I remember seeing this. Yeah.
Yes.
And you remove the logos, and then you say, okay, what's what? And nobody has ever gotten 5 out of 5. Nobody. Even if they've seen it twice, you'll always forget. And that's how important, having a logo is on a lot of dials. So that kind of gave them the idea or to start doing things a little bit different.
Yeah.
You have this in-house manufacturer, which makes their own hairspring, escapements, provides hairsprings for 30 independent watch brands. Yep. But aesthetically and commercially speaking, they were kind of a little bit stuck where they were. And that's when they had that aha moment, or at least, I hope that's what happened, where they decided we needed to change the entire look of the watch, the dials, the hands, the cases. And just like that, they started to evolve from this brand that's been around for 200 years to, modernizing it, making it more creative, and having input into the design. And, we always say we make watches that we would want to wear. And it's true. When you have these product releases or these brainstorm sessions, everybody's very much involved. Obviously, ultimately, the design team and makes those decisions. But, there isn't a piece that we make that I don't love on a certain occasion, right? There's certain watches you can wear on certain days. Like this is a little bit more sporty. But then, every once in a while, I want to wear a Endeavor Vanta Black in a red gold case tourbillon, for a little bit more of a special occasion. So I think that, to get back to what you said, how did they come up with it? I think that they wanted to stand out. And how do you make noise when you don't have the budgets to promote the brand? And that's when all those talking pieces would come out annually. And we haven't stopped. I mean, to some degree, that's a talking piece, the passion project, right?
100%.
Maybe it's less, tongue in cheek, but at the same time, would have expected it. It got people talking. And so I think that we're always going to have that, little rebel in us, to sort of do things a bit differently, to, make waves and just have fun. I mean, really, like, I've worked for very serious brands where everything was very serious and, buttoned up and wearing a suit and tie every day. And,
we get to wear Christmas sweaters.
Today I'm wearing my
exactly
my loaner because
The highly coveted.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if the person who gets the sweater, the last sweater, it's for me. I promise you, I've just wore it this one time.
Yes. Speaking of talking pieces,
What's up? Talk to me.
we got a talking piece here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Please. This is one to talk about for sure.
This is definitely one to talk about.
I remember seeing it when it was released. I saw it at Moserland in person for the first time. I think it was right before we left for
Watches and Wonders.
no, it was after Watches and Wonders. It was July. We were hanging out with the Bevers.
Yes.
And we did an event with our friends at CP Time over at Moserland. Shout out to CQ.
Yes.
And I got to see this
CQ.
for the first time. So the Streamliner is one of my favorite sports watches. You're talking about probably one of the most comfortable bracelets in the industry right now. It's kind of this like serpentine, almost sporty bracelet.
I like to say armadillo.
Armadillo's good.
Armadillo.
Okay, there we go.
I like that.
I like it a little more masculine.
No, not even that, but I just feel like
It feels like armor on your wrist.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
does. Yeah,
Yes.
It does. And then when you just look at the finishing of the bracelet, I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Just the balance between the satin and polished links on the inside grooves there. It's crazy.
So what are we talking about? Talking pieces for Sean.
Yeah, what are we talking about?
So-
What's the talk of the town today?
I mean, well, when you guys see this will be in a different time.
No, this
But-
would be this week.
Well, yes,
Yeah,
but I'm
it's a
saying
couple days.
This would have already happened, but Mark Zuckerberg was seen wearing this timepiece.
Mr. Facebook.
Mr. Facebook.
Yeah.
Now he's kind of like, this big watch guy, right? And it's very interesting to see new people get into the hobby, right? Because you're talking about, yes, someone that can virtually afford anything on God's green earth.
Mhm.
And for these guys that are making these purchases, right? Because we hear funny stories about, let's say, Steve Jobs wears like the same New Balance and same black turtleneck, right? Like for Mark Zuckerberg to invest, because this is a very heavy price point, to invest.
I mean, not for him.
Well, not for him, but to invest any kind of money into anything, right? It's very, very intentional. And for him to choose Moser today, I think is very impressive.
I think it's a smart move on his behalf. I think what we've seen in the last, let me say 2 months with Mark Zuckerberg, obviously, his collection has accelerated very quickly, right? But to your point, here's a guy that can afford anything and he's having fun with it. And I think it goes back to the nature of the hobby, brands like Moser, the community, because I know some people he's talking to. But when you get wrapped in, you get caught up. You get wrapped in and you get caught up. And he's a watch guy now. We got him.
Yeah.
We got him.
I was excited when I, just going through social media today and I spotted that bracelet and I looked at it and I'm like,
I had to take a double
right
take.
away. And I had to, I zoomed in on it and then I watched that video a couple times on his Instagram and I was like, that's our watch. It was very clear. And I was very excited because I was, I thought to myself, that's pretty cool. And we got the cool Zuck.
We did
Yes.
we got also like putting it through its paces. He was like dune buggying like
I know.
Yeah.
like in the sand somewhere.
Yeah.
Like so we'll see if it comes back in for servicing. I don't know if he flipped over a couple of times or something, but I love the fact that like he gets it. And it's like, yo, this is a sports watch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to do some really sporty shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, also too, like in terms of just the design, like it's awesome to have kind of like this like see-through skeleton display. You also have like the display of the hairspring. So as you wind the watch, not only do you see the the tourbillon go, right? You see the barrel is exposed. You see the gear train is exposed. You see the winding stem is exposed. You also see the hairspring tighten as you wind the watch. And then when you flip it over to its backside, you see the turbines, You see also the skeletonized oscillating weight. Like there's so many like subtle nods, whereas like we do know brands that invest in things that you can't see, but you have Moser showing you everything.
Yeah.
Well, and to your point, right? The good thing about this too is, especially for a guy like Zuckerberg, and I think for someone like particularly like in his case too, who obviously is like kind of getting engulfed by the culture of watch collecting, but also I know is like just because of his background, this is someone who's a very quick learner, wants to understand things in and out. There's very few skeletonized watches like this on the market. Very, very, very few.
Yes.
But additionally, he gets to get into the minutia, right? Of like, we can have a whole conversation about finishing with this watch. There's skeletonized watches that you see with really poor finishing.
Yes.
H. Moser does really, really great finishing. And so for him to be able to have a watch like this and to talk to him about beveling, anglage, like, you know,
What about the legibility of it? The fact that you can actually
that as well. You can actually
what
tell
time it
time
is.
on it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like for someone like him who's probably like getting into the nitty gritty, this is like this is like a perfect timepiece to have because I can see everything that someone wants to tell me about, right?
Yes.
We can have a whole conversation about how tourbillons work and you get like a full, almost like 360-degree view of it going in action, right? So everything is there. This thing is fire.
Fire.
Yeah, Mark, if you're watching this,
Yeah. If you're watching this, help us with the algorithm. Just give us a little boost.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Open invitation to Moserland. Open invitation to visit our manufacturer in Schaffhausen, where I'm sure everybody would be
100%.
excited to show you around. And welcome to the family.
And maybe to the metaverse, right? That's what we're trying to get.
Yes, we trying to get WCP in the metaverse. So Zuck, we supporting you, baby.
No, but I was very happy to see this piece, and I think again, just going back to design, something that Moser achieves very well is like this really great balance between like luxury and like sport, and that's not something we get a lot of at this level. Very, very well executed. Shout out to Mark Zuckerberg. Shout out to H. Moser.
You gotta. We're talking about all these great watches, and I think sometimes brands don't mention the design, the production team, the watchmakers, all the great people in Schaffhausen that work daily to make these amazing watches. Because obviously, without them, we wouldn't have these spectacular timepieces to be able to provide to the community.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I always try to remember to mention all the great people that work every single day putting these watches together. And it's a small group. I mean, worldwide, we're less than 100 employees. It's
crazy.
We're a tiny but mighty brand, I like to say.
Yes. Yeah.
Shout out to you guys, man. This is incredible. We got another watch left.
Yes.
I want to talk about this. This is an interesting piece, especially for those that are big fans of Aventurine.
Yeah. I look like I'm gazing into space right now.
I mean, with all the drones in New Jersey, yeah. It's the talk of the town these days. I don't know if you heard about that.
Hopefully we'll get to release this video before the
But
world
this
ends.
is
the pine, right?
No,
this
is that Endeavor?
So that's the
this is Endeavor. Yes.
That's
Because this is the smaller case. Yes.
That's the Endeavor. It's a 40 millimeter stainless steel flying tourbillon with the Aventurine dial. And it's just such a, gorgeous watch. It's an automatic watch.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously as you wear it, it winds itself 3-day power reserve. And as you mentioned, you can just get sort of lost staring into space. And, the other day we was talking to somebody about what Aventurine is. And I say it's one of those, it's like champagne. It was a happy surprise. And that's what you get when you combine heat, glass, and copper, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And it gives that blue textured look to it. I recently wore that. I was going to an event and I was like, oh, I think I want to, wear this watch. And, I couldn't keep it on my wrist. So, even though, Moser is gaining a lot of attention with the Streamliners, some of the pioneers. I mean, the core of who we really are is a watchmaker that makes incredible movements, unbelievable complications like the flying tourbillons, the minute repeater tourbillons, the perpetual calendars, a lot of highly recognized watches. I mentioned the perpetual calendar, GPHG award winner in 2006. The Streamliner skeleton was nominated this year for the Tourbillon Prize. We didn't win, but we did take home the time only prize.
You certainly did.
Which was pretty impressive.
I mean, you guys win something every year. You guys take home an award. I mean, it seems like now.
I don't know if it's every year, but it's pretty incredible to get that recognition from your peers, and a lot of the jewelers or people that work in the business.
You guys took home an award last year for Altlands.
For Altlands, that's right.
It's like every year
for the Sphere.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Also, too, to that point, speaking of the Grand Prix, because we spoke about it, what I do enjoy about the Grand Prix is the fact that they have true enthusiasts that do vote. And so for every watch that Moser was in the category, I definitely voted for. Sorry to kind of sound biased, but part of that is...
Well, where were you on that one? Come on.
Part of it is, to everything that we've spoken about is how ingratiated you guys are with the community, with collectors, with the media. And it almost puts you guys at a huge advantage.
It does.
When, you have both media, collectors, enthusiasts, and then the entire, side of the business. Like, you guys are kind of playing Monopoly a bit. Right?
Don't get them jammed up.
No, but I'm saying in terms of having a good ground game, covering the bases.
That's exactly what it is. It's people, passion, and product.
Well, it's definitely not one of those overnight things.
Yes.
And I think it, just like any great organization, not to say that we're great, but in any, successful organization, you always have to have a successful leader. And we have two. We have Edward and Bertrand Milan, who, everything, we all act the way that they act. And I think that they're a great representation of the brand. They see the future. They have great vision.
Mm-hmm.
They're great with people. They're genuine.
Yes.
And, like I said, I've been here over 3 years. I haven't had one of those days where, we all have had in our careers that you just didn't enjoy it.
Yep.
I mean, I've not had a bad day because of work.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that comes from the top.
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
And, when you enjoy where you work and you're treated, humanely, and you genuinely feel like you're a family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then all this other stuff is just, it's work, but it's easy.
It doesn't feel like work as much.
And I wanted to just add one thing to the point of, speaking of Bertrand and Edward, they don't forget faces. They may not, maybe they will introduce themselves and know you by name, but they know everyone that they meet, which is very, very hard to come by.
It is. It's really hard.
Found like CEOs and top executives.
To that
I wish
point,
people would just wear name tags. It's a lot easier. Like the Seinfeld
how many owners, CEOs of a brand are collectors able to even meet, right? And I think that's part of the ground game, is that there's a culture of embracing the community, embracing collectors, engaging with them, listening to them, talking to them.
They're very approachable, and they might not like me saying this right now, but if you do write them, you will get a response.
Yes.
I'm not telling you to go out and DM them.
Sure.
But that's one of the things that you hear a lot, that they're accessible. They're easily approachable. And of course, you're flying, you're globe trotting, and maybe it's been a year since you've seen, somebody, but you've had meaningful conversation with them. It happens to me all the time too. I'm bad with names. I think it's hereditary.
Well, you're meeting so many people.
My dad was bad with names, so I kind of that's one of the things that I have. But in general, you're absolutely right. They will take the time to. I don't know where they get it, because obviously there's just two of them.
Yeah.
But you hear that from everybody, and I think part of the reasons why the brand is having this continued success is because, as you said, the press, the media, the collectors, fans out there. I mean, it's a good brand to root for. Why not?
100%.
We're having fun, making some cool watches. Nobody's getting hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, pockets might be a little lighter, but that's okay.
Yes.
I want to ask you before we wrap, what are you most looking forward to in 2025 with H. Moser?
So I think 2024 was, an amazing year, because it was the first full year that we had Moserland. It was the first full year that I felt that we had a home. I wasn't working out of, the garage anymore.
Yeah.
My home office is now turned into, a playroom for the kids when I'm not there. So 2024 was sort of like a year of growing into who we are today. Also, a lot of planning towards the future. We have our first boutique that we're opening up in 2025.
Wow.
Amazing.
In the next few weeks in Menlo Park, California. Obviously, Moserland, serves sort of as dual purpose. It's a home office, but if people really want to buy a watch from us, we, depending on the timepiece, we could potentially help them. So, we're sort of continuing to build the infrastructure for the Americas, whether it's continuing to build with our partners, our strategic partners, or other boutique projects that are in the works. But I kind of want to see sort of the rounding out of the brand and what it looks like, what the landscape looks like by the end of 2025, because we have a lot of projects for in-stores and boutiques,
Right.
Not just in the Americas, but globally. And then, of course, the product. I mean, I love the product. I've got a small preview of what we're going to be coming out with next year, and I'm sure some things will change, but it's exciting. And it's of course what you would expect from Moser, not, nothing that I think that we're coming out with next year is anything that anybody would expect. And, when you wear a Moser, I think for the most part, you're not wearing it to fly under the radar. You're not wearing it because you want to play it conservative. You're wearing a Moser because it's the creativity, the dials are amazing.
Yeah.
Obviously the movement, which we've discussed, but it's one of those brands that, you wear when you want to have fun, when you want to be different, when you want to get photographed riding your bike on the street. No, I'm just kidding. Our new campaign.
When you want to flex the dollars.
Rare by nature. But yeah, I mean, how many times do you spot somebody on a monthly basis wearing a Moser? It doesn't happen that often.
No.
So even though the brand feels bigger, we want to continue to grow the community. And then, on a business, from a business perspective, to continue to gain market share.
Yep.
and sort of become more and more of a major player for our partners and for collectors alike. There's still a lot of people out there, talking to you, who haven't gotten their first Moser yet.
Yeah.
And it's time to join the family.
It's time to join the family.
Yes.
Yeah, spreading the good word. Claudio, I want to say thank you for joining us this evening, coming all the way out here. You know how I feel about you. We have a very special brotherhood. I appreciate you. I'm couldn't be happier than to see all of the growth that you've had and the growth that Moser is experiencing. I meant everything I said this evening. This is a brand that means a whole lot to me by way of the product and the culture. And I think you guys are setting a precedent for the rest of the industry in how, they can better engage communities, foster relationships, and do things a little unconventional. You can shake things up a little bit. Everyone doesn't have to play by the same exact rules. You can make up your own and go your own way. So shout out to you guys. You guys know where to find us at RiskCheckPod on Instagram. Additionally, superniche.com is launching at the end of the month. So you'll be able to find everything there in the Super Niche universe, RiskCheckPod, Corked and Curated, and a new show we're launching called Brush. There's another show that we'll be launching before the end of January called Transmissions, a big episode with Rashawn and myself visiting Geneva, hanging out with some familiar faces. I can't wait for you all to see that. And if we don't see you before then, and we will, but happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Deuces. And if you get one of these, you're part of the club, but you can't.
I don't have any left.
Peace.
Later.